A girl walks down a high school hallway.
A remark someone makes,
A boy strokes her arm.
an unwanted touch, or pressure to do something you don't want to do. It can be scary and make you feel horrible, like your whole world is thrown out of focus. Sexual harassment takes many forms, and those responsible for it can be people you know, your classmates, teachers, people you'd least expect. Sexual harassment happens in school more often than you think. Perhaps it's even happened to you.
Title: Sexual Harassment at School, Hostile Environments.
This video is about sexual harassment in your world, school. In this program, you will learn to recognize behaviors and situations that could be sexual harassment. You will become familiar with how to handle harassing situations, the different kinds of sexual harassment, and how to cope after harassment occurs. You will also understand how to avoid becoming the harasser. By learning to identify and handle sexual harassment, you will put this destructive behavior in focus.
3 boys surround a girl sitting in a hall reading. Title: What is sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment is an unwanted, sex-related advance that makes a person feel uncomfortable and unsafe. It can be a request for sexual favors or unwelcome passes that intimidate, violate, cause fear and confusion. It can happen to girls or boys. It can be done by boys or girls. If sexual harassment is not the same as flirting or joking around, then what is it?
A boy and girl stand back to back with their arms crossed. Title: Types of sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment can be experienced 3 different ways: verbally, physically, and visually.
I had this teacher, and he would just look at me in the wrong way, and he would smirk at me. It wasn't like a casual smile, it was more like a creepy grin, and it just made me feel really uncomfortable. And he would just put his arm around my shoulder, and it wasn't a good situation for me to be in, actually, at school. I just felt like my ability to learn was being hindered.
Sexual harassment is very common in schools. There was a study done
Counselor Katie
at the
Kamen.
University of Michigan, and they found that 1 in 3 students from middle school and high school are sexually harassed.
In slow motion, boys at a locker whistle and leer at a girl walking by. Title: Verbal harassment.
Sexual harassment doesn't always mean someone is trying to touch you. If someone makes sexual comments about you, your body, clothing, or appearance, that's sexual harassment too. Spreading sexual lies, rumors, or information about someone's sex life is also sexual harassment. Some people use social networking sites like Formspring and Facebook to share information and spread rumors. Because information on the internet can spread so quickly and to unlimited viewers, the effects can be overwhelming. Verbal harassment can be foul language that is sexual in nature. Making kissing sounds, howling, or smacking lips at someone can be harassment. So can whistling at someone. Everybody enjoys a joke, but telling sexual jokes or stories can be harassment. If you think what you're about to say or do might be sexual harassment, it probably is. It's safer to skip it. Repeatedly pressuring someone for a date can also be sexual harassment.
I was involved in an incident where I was sexually harassed. There were these 3 girls. I was walking down the hallway, waiting to go up the stairs, and I was trying to go up the stairs, but they stopped me, and they were making comments about my personal life and a lot of private stuff. They were kind of touching me in weird ways, and it made me feel really uncomfortable.
A hand settles on someone's shoulder. Title: Physical harassment.
Sexual harassment that is physical takes many forms. Grabbing someone, brushing up against them, touching their clothing, hair, or body, flashing, or rubbing someone. That is all physical harassment. The girl clearly wants to be left alone. The boy is ignoring her response.
He moves closer.
This is sexual harassment.
Physical harassment plays out in schools,
Conman.
forms of inappropriate touching. It may be groping, grabbing certain body parts, grabbing onto someone's breasts, their behind, their clothes, maybe pulling on the clothes, pulling down the clothes, pulling them off, trying to hug on someone, kiss on someone, grope. And I would say most common in schools, you see a lot of the grabbing and smacking on the bottom and touching in inappropriate places.
A boy outlines an hourglass figure with his hands. Title: Visual harassment.
Visual or nonverbal harassment can be a simple display of nudity in pictures, or a lewd computer display, even some graffiti or obscene gestures. Continually staring at someone, throwing kisses, or making sexual gestures with your hands can be very upsetting and harassing.
Visual harassment can be a picture, it can be an email, a text message, it can be on the internet, Facebook, MySpace, anything that's inappropriate, a cartoon or a drawing depicting some type of sexual nature. In schools, you see a lot of times students passing notes back and forth. They draw something inappropriate, a student doing something inappropriate, or you'll see on Facebook nowadays is very common where someone writes an inappropriate comment on their page.
A girl sits with her head down on a desk. Title: Damage done.
The damage caused by sexual harassment cuts deep and can last a long time. It's common for a victim to become depressed and reluctant to attend classes, and distracted, causing grades to drop. Sexual harassment makes its victims anxious and hesitant to enter new friendships or relationships. It is a violation of the basic trust in human interaction. A comment that makes you sick to your stomach, or a look that makes you feel uncomfortable and unsafe. It all starts off as normal human interactions. But when the trust of these exchanges is undermined, the damage is almost irreparable. And if the violation is caused by someone who is there to protect the student, such as a teacher, the damage is multiplied.
When a student is sexually harassed by a teacher, they often feel betrayed by that teacher because that's someone that they've really grown to respect and trust, and someone that they look at as an authority. They experience a lot of different emotions. They feel ashamed and humiliated. They often blame themselves. They feel very confused. They withdraw. They feel depressed, and oftentimes they'll actually stop coming to school.
It made me feel just really uncomfortable. I would end up, waking up late and not wanting to go to that class because it was my first period class, and so I'd be late to school. I'd miss, the first 5-10 minutes, and he just made me feel like it was a drudgery. I didn't want to go there to learn. I felt like my mind couldn't even process the information, and I was just thinking, what is it that I'm doing? Is it, my shirt? Are my shirts too tight, or are my, shorts too short? And I started just wearing t-shirts and just baggy sweatpants, and I was just not motivated at all.
Male victims are often overlooked because of society's gender roles. Boys often feel expected to be tough and aggressive in male-female relations. The negative impact of sexual harassment on boys is also often enhanced when no one believes or reacts to their complaints. They are often viewed as the probable harasser and not the victim, but that is not always the case.
Boys can be sexually harassed in the same ways that girls can. There aren't many differences. They can be touched inappropriately just like girls. They may have comments made towards them, sexually inappropriate, whistling, anything that girls go through, the boys do as well. We just don't hear about it as much with the young men.
Whether it's a sexual comment or rumor or excessive pressure to do something sexual, the line is crossed all too frequently in schools everywhere.
Title: Crossing boundaries.
Many students are too scared or embarrassed to report they've been victims of sexual harassment. The line between appropriate and inappropriate behavior can be blurry. If someone's verbal, physical, or visual behavior makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, the line has been crossed. Why do some people cross it? For many harassers, their actions fulfill a need for feeling power over another person. Why is this teacher whispering in her ear? He's also inviting her to his house after school so he can help her get an A in his class. That blurry line just got crossed. When unwanted sexual touching, sex-related comments, or gestures make you feel uncomfortable or unsafe at school, you are being sexually harassed. It may come from someone with power and control over you, like teachers or other school officials, or even other students.
Boys stand and one circles a girl.
Now, do you kiss me?
No way.
Oh, come on, I'll move. Just one little kiss.
When this type of behavior is common, it creates a very hostile environment.
When authority figures sexually harass students, they most typically say inappropriate comments or ask them inappropriate questions. So they may ask a student about their sex life. They may make a comment like, if you were a little older, we could get together. So the most typical types of sexual harassment by teachers are either inappropriate questions or comments made to the students.
So eventually he kept up with whispering to me in class and putting his arm around me. And there was one point where he told me that he thought that it'd be a really good idea if I came over to his house for him to help me study, because he said that I would need help in order to pass the class. And I didn't know what to do.
When students sexually harass other students, they're often making comments such as, "You look really good," "Oh, I'd like to hit that," "I want to touch that," "I want to get with that." Or they may make jokes that are in a sexual nature, and they do it in a fun way where they're just kidding around, so they don't think it's serious, but it's very serious.
After class, usually in third period, there would always be these group of guys that were at the corner, and then they would whistle and bump into me. And it was just really uncomfortable for me because I wasn't that kind of person.
So, if the line is blurry, how do you know when someone has crossed it? Wanting to arouse interest from someone you like is normal. But if your behavior makes someone feel uncomfortable and unsafe, then it crosses the line into sexual harassment, and that's wrong and harmful. Let's break it down. Flirting is behavior that makes the other person feel happy and in control. Sexually harassing behavior makes the other person feel powerless and small. Flirting with someone typically results in boosting their self-esteem. Sexually harassing someone, on the other hand, damages their self-esteem. Flirting is natural and healthy when it doesn't include actions that make a person feel visually, verbally, or physically harassed.
Title: Putting Sexual Harassment in Focus.
No one should have to live in fear. Victims of sexual harassment often bear a lot of unnecessary burdens. Guilt, thinking that they somehow provoked the harassment. Anger and anxiety that often don't go away. Confusion and frustration because they are not sure whether a behavior is appropriate or not. Isolation because they often suffer in silence. We have laws that protect everyone from sexual harassment, and students are no exception. For example, Title IX is part of a federal law. It applies to schools receiving federal funding, which is most public schools. Title IX prohibits sexual harassment in schools. That means a school must have and distribute a policy against sex discrimination. That policy must address sexual harassment. The policy must inform students, parents, and school staff that sexual harassment will not be tolerated. Title IX also states that a school must have procedures for placing and resolving complaints of sexual harassment. And schools must have a Title IX coordinator to ensure the school complies with the law. Most high schools also have a counselor or social worker on staff. If you are sexually harassed by a student or witness someone who is being harassed, say no clearly. Don't let it go. Write down what happened. Be sure to include the date of the incident and the time it occurred. If possible, provide the name of the person who did it and the names of any witnesses. It's really important to write it down, even if it's a teacher, especially if it's a teacher. Don't be afraid to report the incident to the school counselor or another official that you trust. Together, you can talk to the principal. It's also very important to tell your parents. Most importantly, don't blame yourself for what happened. It's definitely not your fault.
Title IX was created to protect students against sexual harassment and be able to provide them with an equal education when they're at school. A safe place where they could feel comfortable, they don't have to worry about anyone saying anything inappropriate or touching them in the wrong way. And it's there so that if any of that behavior ever occurs, they can go to an authority at the school, and that Title IX will protect them.
So the same day that my teacher invited me to go to his house, I was able to go to my counselor. I made that decision, and it was the best decision that I could have made because she was really supportive and she listened to my story and just let me know that it wasn't my fault and that I did nothing wrong to deserve that. And she just really encouraged me, and I was able to go back to class, and they just took care of the situation, and I felt like I was ready to learn again.
It is extremely important that victims don't feel ashamed, embarrassed, or scared to tell someone at school that they've been sexually harassed. This is the only way that we'll be able to stop that behavior. They should find an adult that they trust at the school, whether it be a teacher, your school counselor is a great resource, going to the principal, but they need to tell someone right away so that action can be taken.
Title: Review.
In this program, you learned what sexual harassment is and is not. Sexual harassment is unwanted and continual sex-related advances or unwelcome passes that make a person uncomfortable or scared. Sexual harassment is not the same as flirting or joking around. If someone makes sexual comments about you, your body, clothing,